guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to Disney Decorating with the Sassy Cinderella. I'm so glad to have you guys here today. I have been planning this since the start of my channel. I have 15 years of decorating and teaching experience. I've been doing this for such a long time, and there's nothing I love more in this world than teaching and Disney. So I thought it would be great to marry the two together. So today it is fall time, it is spooky season. So I wanted to do something that incorporated the fall and Disney. So what better than a cookie that is a Mickey pumpkin? This is inspired by the Mickey pumpkin that finds his way onto Main Street for Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party, and I hope you guys love him as much as I do. Let's get going. Here's what you'll need. Gel coloring in shades of orange, yellow, green, and red. 4 icing bags prepped and ready to go with couplers already in place. For this project, I chose to use disposable bags that are 12 inches, but you do have the option of reusable bags as well. 4 icing tips in a variety of sizes from 2 to 4. I do sort of play around with this every time, and I would recommend that whatever size you're using to outline your cookie is the same size you use to fill the cookie. You could also play around with using a smaller size tip to fill the cookie with, but if you end up choosing a larger size tip, it oftentimes ends up overflowing. Mickey cookies pre-made with a Mickey cookie cutter. I bought this one years ago at the parks, so I'm not sure exactly where to find this specific one, but just keep in mind it is a very large cookie cutter. I like to work with large cutters when I can because it provides me more surface area to have more room to work with and also to provide more detail. Petal dust in an orange shade of choice. This is an optional step, but we're going to be using this powdered food coloring to shade our pumpkin cookie. So I would recommend an orange shade that is slightly deeper than the shade of the orange you choose to make your royal icing. Paintbrush of choice. This is going to be used for our shading, and because of the way this is going to happen, I prefer a small, flat, angled brush. And just a quick note, I'm going to leave the cookie recipe I used in the description box below. You have to be really careful because not all cookies are created equally, and oftentimes you're going to find that not all cookies that you buy at the store are going to hold their shape when you bake them in the oven. And last but not least, pre-made royal icing to fill your bags with. The food colorings I mentioned earlier were used to dye the royal icing in advance. You're actually only going to be using the colors orange, green, and yellow, but I added a hint of red to the orange to deepen it. And here's the photo I used as a reference or guide when making this cookie, so it's great to have this handy as you're working. And if this is your first time working with royal icing, be sure to check out my How to Make Royal Icing video linked up above. Okay, so right now I am going to start with my Mickey cookie. I am using a piping tip number 3, and I'm using that thicker consistency of royal icing to outline with. I, in thinking about it, decided that it might be easier to actually do the lines of the pumpkin before doing our outline. You could actually skip this step completely if you want to do something a little more simple. That's completely up to you. So I want to make sure that this ends up kind of symmetrical. So I'm going to go ahead and just sort of visually find the split down the center of the Mickey here. And I'm going to leave a little bit of space because we need room on that edge to actually do the outline. So I don't want to go too far up to that edge. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a line, give it a slight curve, and watch that line fall. And then drop off at the end. Don't worry if the lines aren't perfect. We are going to fill, we're going to add quite a bit of dimension. I'm going to move over slightly and make the next line, again leaving some space. And then I'm going to add a couple up on the ears as well. Now that I have my pumpkin lines in place, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start at the bottom of the cookie here. I'm going to find the bottom of one of those lines, and I'm going to let this outline fall into place. Again, leaving a little bit of room around the edges. I'm trying to sort of connect to where I have made those lines. This one got a little bit wonky, so I'm going to try to move it just slightly. Be very, very careful when you do that, but you can actually just manipulate it a little bit if you get a little wonky. Okay, so now we're gonna go back and fill in all of the sections we've created of our pumpkin Mickey head here. So I have switched to this thinner sort of flow icing. I probably thinned the orange down by about maybe a half a teaspoon of water. I would say I added a fair amount, so it's very, very thin. I'm also using a tip number 3 for this as well, and you don't want to overdo the filling because it will actually end up covering up the outlining that you've done, so be careful there. And as you begin to fill as well, make sure that you keep this piping bag in the crook of your hand, your hands wrapped, because let me tell you, this really thin icing gets messy very, very quickly. So I'm just going to pick a section to start with. I'll just work left to right here. And I'm just gonna start squeezing with a gentle pressure. You can kind of work right to left if that's best for you. And we're just gonna begin filling in the pumpkin. Don't worry if there are a little bit of sort of spaces in between what you're filling with, because we are gonna end up tapping that out in the end. Okay, so now that I have this filled, I did kind of go back and just add a couple little dots in places I thought maybe there was too large of a gap. I'm gonna start shaking the cookie right to left. You can also just kind of tap it down, and you're gonna see that that is going to start to allow the icing to fill out. If you are still finding little gaps, you can just very, very carefully try and go and fill them slightly. Still got quite a bit of elasticity with the icing being this thin right now, so you do have a little bit of wiggle room to play with. And now we have the outline and fill of our pumpkin Mickey. Okay, so now that we have our pumpkin Mickey filled, I am going to allow him to dry. Really, the looser the royal icing you use, the longer it's going to take to dry. So this can actually be quite a long process. I might even end up leaving him for about an hour before coming back to him. And don't stress about your lines being completely perfect. We just kind of want to generally have a guide, because we're going to be doing some fun sort of detailing and dusting to sort of bring out the shading in the pumpkin here in a little bit. Okay, so now we have our Mickey pumpkin cookie that it should look like a lot of the glossiness has kind of gone away. It shouldn't feel like you're pushing into basically wet icing. So we are ready to go. I think it took about an hour and a half. It was a very loose royal icing. It took a long time to dry. But I wanted to add a little bit of dimension to this pumpkin, a little bit of character. So something that I really like to use to kind of add some shadowing is this right here. I already have the lid off. It is a petal dust. This is by, let's see, Sugar Art here. It is called Elite Color in the tone Rustic. This is a petal dust, which means that the dust is a matte color. It doesn't have any shine to it. You can get colors called luster dust that do have a shimmer if you want that, but this is just a nice matte color. This shade I thought was deep enough to show up, but not so shocking that it's going to basically shock the palette when you look at it. I thought it was a really great tone for shading this particular color of orange. And I kind of experimented with a couple brushes. I have paint brushes that are exclusively used on food. Definitely don't use the same brushes you use with acrylic paints on food. Keep, a separate set. But I like this flat angled brush here that I have. It was working a lot better for me. So I actually went ahead and I put a little bit of the dust into the top of the cap here. A little does go a long way. So use it kind of gingerly, and then, feel free to increase and play around as you go. I'm gonna start by tapping some of this into my brush and then tapping that off onto my parchment paper here so I don't go too crazy. And I'm literally just going to fall into the creases of the pumpkin with the dust here. It's still maybe too much, more than I wanted, but that's okay. We're gonna end up blowing off the excess when we're finished. You can also use petal dusts and luster dusts to paint, which is a different process that I will show at some point because it's one of my very favorite things to do. but you can dry brush or use these as paints, which are both really, really fun techniques to just sort of give a little kick to the work you're doing. You can do completely painted cakes. They can be absolutely amazing just with luster and petal dusts. Okay, so now that I have all of this in here, I'm just gonna kind of blow off the excess. And now you can see we've got this great dimension in the cookie. If you want to take it up an extra notch, you could take a soft brush and just kind of dust around a little bit to sort of extend that little bit of grittiness into the pumpkin. I might actually do that real quickly. Okay, so I grabbed a soft brush here and I'm very, very gingerly adding some of this color. And I'm just gonna kind of dry brush around on the cookie. Not sure how well the camera is going to pick this up, but you can see it just has a little bit more realism about it now because it's got some of the natural change in tones happening. I actually really prefer this to even just within the crevices themselves. Now, keep in mind that when you are doing this, that this step has to come before you do your face, because if you try to put all that in, let it dry, and then come back to it, you're having to work around that. So maybe you're getting dust in places you don't want dust. So make sure you commit to whatever you're going to do there. Okay, so we're ready for our face. Now, when you see the Main Street Mickey pumpkin, he does have these big oval eyes that kind of have a C and a backwards C forming the inside, I guess, iris part of his eye. So I'm gonna start, they do tend to kind of frame the center lines on the pumpkin, so I'm going to kind of use that as my guide. I'm gonna start about a ½ inch to an inch down, and I'm basically making the outline of an oval, but as I bring the line around, I'm going to make a C shape inside. It's a backwards C on this side, so that I can leave that spot for the iris. And then I'm going to do the same thing, mirroring it on the other side, which can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes. And I'm just filling in, just like we did when we filled the cookie. If you get a little uneven, you can come back and kind of even them out a little bit. And then we are back to our tapping, shaking, trying to make it look all pretty and perfect and smooth. I do have, again, that sort of straight pin tool, so if you ever see any little wonky spots, you can kind of just tweak it a little bit there. And there we go, we've got Mickey's eyes. Now we need to make the nose, which is an elongated oval. So I'm going to come down again, maybe another ½ inch, and I'm just going to make a nice elongated oval shape here and fill it in. And again, tap, 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 shake, shake, shake. Don't be afraid to use your tools or to even yourself out a little bit. We did use a thinner icing here. I used a much thinner royal icing, more similar to what we used to fill the cookie. And then now we have his smile, which the smile on the Mickey pumpkin has the two curved lines on the outer edges, the smile mark, but then it opens up. It's like an open mouth smile. So you're gonna be making two smile lines, and the bottom line is going to have an indentation in a half circle, almost like there was a tongue there. So hopefully that makes sense, and that seeing it from this perspective, it will make sense, but I will turn it around for you here in a second. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna make the smile lines. And I'm going to start with my first line a little higher than the second. And then I will connect it and leave a big space open. Boop, there goes my indentation. And join the lines back up. Now, even this right here, looks great. You don't even have to fill it. You could leave it just like that. Matter of fact, I have one that's already filled, and I think I am gonna leave this one like this, and I'll show you sort of the variation here. Now, since we are finished with our yellow, I am going to switch over to the green. I am using a number 2 tip on the green. Let's see, my yellow, in case I didn't mention it, was a number 2 as well. A little bit smaller of a tip because we are doing more detail work. The green is a little bit thicker than the yellow is. It's not quite a flow icing. It is a little bit thicker of a royal icing. We want to go ahead and add the vines, the leaf, and the little stem. That's also why I tried to leave just a little bit extra room sort of on that center edge at the top of Mickey's head. And I'm actually gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start with the vines. Now with vines, I'm using a number 2 tip, which is really, really small. And you're gonna have to give the bag a fair amount of pressure. I am going to leave some room above the cookie. We never wanna dig into the royal icing. I'm gonna let that line fall, and I'm just gonna kind of curl around, make some curly cues. Just sort of follow the top of Mickey's head here. And then I'm gonna use that same icing right above the Mickey head. I'm just kind of making a rectangle up here for the top of the pumpkin. And you can extend that actually onto the icing if you like how that looks. And now if you want to take it a step further, you can add a leaf. I have a leaf tip here that honestly it's the larger size leaf tip. I would prefer the smaller one, but this is what I had on hand. If you have never made leaves before, basically, and of course, try this on a practice board or on your parchment paper before putting it onto your pumpkin. But you're gonna start at kind of a 45-degree angle, give it a good squeeze and a little shake right to left, and then release the pressure and pull off. I'm actually gonna do that sort of aimed down at my vine here. Squeeze, shake, and pull. There we go. So we get a little bit of a leaf there at the top. And here's a shot of the 2 different Mickey pumpkin variations side by side. Okay guys, so that wraps up the tutorial portion of this video, but I do have one other thing I want to show you, which is how to package these beautifully, because who does not love getting something beautifully packaged? I know I do, even if sometimes I'm not always the best at it, but I went ahead and I picked up these really cute trick-or-treat bags that I found at Joann's, along with this spooky spider ribbon that I thought was really, really cute. And guess what? They were 70% off right now. So run over to the store, find some cute stuff. It's close enough to the holidays now that we're getting really nice discounts. So I went ahead and I stuck one of my Mickey pumpkin cookies into this bag, wrapped my spooky spider ribbon around it, and I think this turned out so cute. I hope you guys like it as well. And of course there were tons of cute options, so you can go a different direction that you like when you go to the store and find all the cute things they have right now as well. Here is one last look at our Mickey pumpkin. He's so cute. I hope you guys had so much fun with this. I'm gonna be doing decorating pretty regularly on the channel. There will definitely be Technique Tuesdays every single week and projects sporadically as well. I especially cannot wait to get into cake decorating with you guys, because that is my favorite thing in the decorating world to do. Have a great holiday season. I hope this gives you something fun to do around the holiday time here, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.